10 Spine-chilling encounters in the Appalachian Mountains, discover the sinister truths revealed. The forest loomed, dark and foreboding, as Claire pushed her children up the winding driveway leading to their new home. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, but Claire's heart raced with a thrill that bordered on fear. It wasn't just the shadows casting themselves ominously between the trees, it was the weight of the past, the burdens of a broken marriage and the hope for a fresh start that felt as fragile as a crack in the floorboards of the ancient house before her. The tale of this area, whispered behind half-closed doors, echoed tales of lost children and malevolent spirits hidden beneath the surface. As they stepped inside, a chill trembled down Claire's spine. The rooms were dusty, as if the air itself avoided breathing in here. The dim light flickered from the old lantern she clutched, moving nervously through creaky halls. Her kids, Lily and Ben, scampered to explore, filling the stillness with echoes of laughter that quickly faded. Their joy turned bitter, shadows flickered in the corners of her vision, and Claire couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was just an old house, she told herself. But the crisp night ventured outside, and the wind shrieked through gaps in the wood, carrying whispers from the forest. Before we continue, a voice in her mind whispered anxiously. I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With that intrusive thought pushed aside, remnants of fatigue mixed with simmering dread, Claire settled into a fitful sleep. But that night, the sounds of the forest crawled into her dreams, rustling leaves, distorted whispers, and an unmistakable giggle that sent ice through her veins. The next day dawned gray, casting an eerie pallor over their new beginning. Ben begged to go hiking in the woods, but Claire hesitated. Shadows stretched ominously amongst the trees, whispering secrets she couldn't quite grasp. Yet, she relented, buoyed by the innocence of her children's excitement. While Lily chased butterflies, Claire sensed something lurking at the edge of their grove watching. When she looked back, Ben was gone. Panic gripped her heart like a vice as she called his name, voice shaking with fear. Her breath quickened as dread spiraled, searching frantically among the gnarly roots and ancient trunks. It's just the adjustment, she whispered into the darkening woods. But deep down, she knew something wasn't right. Lily's laughter had turned into a desperate cry. Each scream echoed through the trees, twisting into the night. Drew towards the village she thought would protect them. Claire discovered the townsfolk felt too cheerful, their friendly waves carrying an unsettling edge. Whispers floated about lost children, legends of disappearances. Everything she'd thought a myth reeked of truth now. Dark secrets slithered through the village like smoke, curling around her resolve. Claire felt the ground shift beneath her feet as dread settled like a thick fog in her chest. As she confronted the friendly neighbor she thought held the key to her son's whereabouts, laughter echoed in the trees. It was familiar and mocking. Claire, the word slipped from the shadows, chilling her to the core. A figure blended into the trees, and Claire's heartbeat pounded like a drum, each thud signaling an impending threat. The truth simmered close, but the darkness encroached once more, and she realized she might have walked straight into a trap. The figure stepped closer, its movements fluid and unnatural, like a marionette pulled by invisible strings. Claire's breath hitched in her throat as she caught a glimpse of its face under the dim light, a hauntingly familiar visage. Panic gripped her heart even tighter, as if cold fingers had wrapped around it, squeezing until it ached. Claire called her name again, the voice dripping with mockery. What was this twisted reflection? Lily's cries rang out again, snapping her from the trance. Claire forced herself to look away from the figure, tearing her eyes from its grip. She had to find Ben. She had to get her children out of here. Ben. Her voice was raw, cutting through the thick silence, but the woods absorbed it, swallowing her cries as if they had never been uttered. The sound of leaves crunching beneath her feet was the only answer. The world around her felt alive, trees swaying, whispering secrets she couldn't decode. "Maybe they'll hear you," the figure taunted, its laughter echoing like a chorus of lost souls. Desperate, Claire turned and ran, branches clawing at her, grasping at her hair and clothes as if the forest itself sought to hold her back. She tore through the underbrush, heart hammering against her ribs like a desperate animal seeking escape. Each step was heavier than the last as dread heightened with every passing moment. "Mommy!" Ben's voice pierced through the darkness, laced with fear. "Ben! I'm coming!" She sprinted towards the sound, dodging towering trunks and stumbling over roots that seemed intent on tripping her. The ground felt unsteady underfoot, as if the earth was shifting, leading her further away from safety. Then, a clearing opened before her, moonlight flooding the scene like pure silver. Claire stumbled into it, breathless, but the moment of reprieve was shattered. Standing in the center was a circle of children, their eyes wide and glassy, fixated on something just beyond her line of sight. "What are you?" Claire's voice faltered as she approached, feeling an odd pull toward them, an unexplainable urge to join. They stood in silence, a strange kind of harmony hanging in the air. "Help us, Mommy!" Lily's voice rang out, disjointed and hurried. "Lily!" Claire's heart leaped as she sought her daughter among the frozen figures, but there was an unsettling stillness to her who were once full of life. Claire felt the laughter of the unseen figure at her back, curling around her neck like a noose. The air thickened, a tension that made every breath a chore, every heartbeat a reminder of the danger that lurked in the shadows. Desperation clawed at her. "I'm here. I'm right here, baby." But the children didn't move. They stood like statues, ensnared in a web of darkness that twisted through the trees, and Claire realized they were not just children, they were part of something far more sinister, something that wouldn't let them go easily. With a jolt, real fear gripped her as she recognized the truth: these children had been lost. Perhaps like Ben, trapped within the forest's malevolent embrace. But the shadows began to dance around her, drawing her back towards that chilling, familiar laughter. Behind her, the figure waited, and she could taste its dark intentions in the air. "Don't look back," a faint whisper slipped through her mind. But a wild instinct drove her. She twisted around, heart hammering, ready to confront the lurking malevolence, only to find nothing. No figure, no sound but the soft, eerie murmurs of the forest. But now she understood. Darkness wasn't just out there, it was within her, clawing at the edges of her sanity. "Lily! Ben!" Panic surged anew as she dashed into the forest, guided only by her children's voices. But with each step, she felt the weight of the forest press in around her, and the ominous presence lurked ever closer, eager for its final feast. As she fought against the encroaching darkness, a chilling thought filled her mind: what if the trap had already been set? And in that moment of dread, she realized the truth of that mocking laughter still echoed. Would she rescue her children, or would they become lost like those before them? The forest closed in around Claire as she stumbled deeper into the shadowy embrace. Her heart raced, a wild drumbeat of fear that drowned out everything else. Every dark shape amongst the trees seemed to shift, to twist under the weight of her panic. Where were her children? Panic braided itself with dread, tightening around her throat. Ben! Lily! She screamed, though her voice echoed back at her in mocking tones. There was no response, only the relentless rustle of leaves and the eerie call of night creatures. The canopy overhead throbbed with an unnatural pulse, each heartbeat seeming to synchronize with her own rising terror. Just ahead, another clearing appeared, glimmering with an otherworldly light that pierced through the thick pines. Claire was drawn to it, memory and instinct battling for dominance. Her breath caught as her feet carried her closer. In the center stood a grotesque figure, but it wasn't the same as before. This one was shifting, blurring in and out of focus, although its eyes remained keen, piercing right through her. The figure laughed softly, a sound that sent icy fingers skittering down Claire's spine. "Finding them will be your undoing," it whispered, voice curling like smoke around her. Intrigued and terrified, Claire felt the familiar pull again, the urge to step forward. "Where are my kids?" She screamed, frantic, but the figure remained unyielding, locked in its perverse dance of shadows. Claire could feel the weight of its gaze, an unholy energy locking her in place. As she hesitated, a small shape darted past her. It was Ben. She blinked, and for a moment, hope blazed brightly. But as quickly as he appeared, he vanished behind a thicket. Panic surged within her. "Ben!" she cried, rushing past the figure, ignoring the clinging shadows that sought to ensnare her. The laughter bubbled up around her, a cruel serenade, but she had no time to bother with it now. She sprinted into the tangle of trees, eyes wide, heart screaming for its lost children. The woods twisted strangely. Familiar paths morphed into nightmarish labyrinths. Time played tricks on her. Minutes felt like an eternity as she called out, frantically searching for her children. Each echo of their names felt louder, fainter, a cruel reminder of their fragility. Then a low murmur stopped her in her tracks. The hairs on her neck stood up. Voices intertwined with the wind, sorrowful and pleading. "Help us!" The children were close. Their words were like threads, pulling her deeper into the woods. She followed, every instinct screaming at her to turn back, but Claire pressed on, driven by a mother's resolve and overwhelming fear. She arrived at yet another clearing, where a group of spectral figures flickered in the moonlight. They glided together, swirling like wisps of smoke, always on the periphery of perception. Among them stood Lily, her face pale, eyes wide with fear. "Mommy!" Lily cried, stretching her arms out towards Claire, who felt her own heart shatter at the sight. But as Claire moved, the figures tightened their circle, and a shrill whistle of wind swirled around her, erasing the boundaries of the clearing. They were ensnared in a ritual without beginning or end, shadows seeking to outlast the light. "Get back!" Claire screamed, racing forward as if to break the hold, but the dark net of the forest began to constrict. "No! Mommy, don't!" Ben's voice rang out next, frantic and piercing, cutting through her like a knife. "Stay away from them!" Claire shouted, but as she brushed past phantoms, the darkness fought back. The forest shivered in response, and the laughter twisted into a cacophony of despair. With every heartbeat, the shadows wrapped tighter around her, inviting her to join the dance. As Claire struggled against the weight of despair, she realized the figure was not just an enemy. It was a guide to this nightmare. In that instant, Claire felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Roots erupted, grasping for her ankles like the hands of the damned. Her breath came in rapid bursts, panic sprinting through her. She could either fight it or let go. But what would come of her if she surrendered? What lay ahead if she fought? At that moment, Claire knew, she had to face the darkness head-on. But as she prepared to confront her fears, an anguished cry split the air, echoing through the treetops, and the shadows danced with renewed vigor. "Mommy! Help us!" The chant swelled as the whispers encircled her, growing louder, relentless. Claire's choice loomed before her, and somewhere, from deep within the folds of darkness, the figure stood waiting. Would she succumb to the shadows, or would she break free? Claire felt the shadows close in, an overwhelming tide that threatened to pull her under. Adrenaline surged through her veins, but fear clawed at her heart. The forest whispered secrets, ancient secrets that twisted her perception. The figure's laughter echoed, wrapping around her like a cold shroud, and she wondered if she'd ever see Ben and Lily again. "Mommy! Please!" The urgency in their voices sliced through the tumult. She was running now, reckless abandon fueled by desperation. Every step felt heavier, as if the earth itself conspired against her. The woods stood like sentinels around her, whispering her name, beckoning her to join them. Shadows leapt and danced, painting distorted shapes on the ground. A clearing opened suddenly, illuminated by a sinister glow that seemed to swallow the moonlight. In its center stood a gnarled tree, twisted and blackened as if scorched by an unseen flame. From its roots spread fingers of darkness, caressing the soil like hungry mouths. A shiver crawled down Claire's spine. She instinctively took a step back, but the cry of her children drew her forward. Ben! Lily! She could hardly recognize her own voice, straining through the sorrow and darkness. From the grip of the tree, faces began to emerge, wretched souls caught in eternal torment. They reached out, their mouths opening in silent screams. It was a grotesque choir, each face a mirror of despair. Caught between longing and revulsion, Claire stumbled forward. "What do you want?" she cried, but the figures only stared, their hollow eyes pleading, their fingers brushing the edge of her consciousness. "Help us," they moaned, overlapping voices creating a sinister melody that beckoned her closer. "Where are my children?" Claire shouted, growing frantic. "Tell me." In response, the figures twisted their mouths into smiles that were not smiles at all. "They must join. They must join." The laughter took shape again, reverberating through the clearing, a sound more maddening than anything. A pulse of cold air struck her, leaving her breathless. The children's voices called again, closer now, but the shadows tightened and pulled at her. What kind of monster were they becoming? Their cries echoed in her heart, and suddenly, she understood. "Take me!" she cried out. "Take me instead. Let them go." Everything around her stilled. The air thickened with anticipation. The figures seemed to hesitate, captivated, their gazes shifting from Claire to the cursed roots surrounding the tree. Then, the tree emitted a sound, a groan that shook Claire to her core. The shadows condensed, swirling around her legs like a storm, dragging her closer to its dark embrace. "No!" she screamed, pulling with all her strength, but it was as if she were standing in quicksand. The ground roiled, and images of her children flickered at the edges of her vision. Ben's frightened face, Lily reaching out, desperation written in their eyes. With one final surge, Claire broke free from the tree's grip, but it wasn't without consequence. The shadows lashed out, wrapping around her wrists, fusing to her skin, and she could feel their coldness infiltrating her very essence. "Mommy!" Ben's voice was panicked now, a chilling reminder that time was slipping away. Claire's heart dropped. Could they hear her? Could she reach them amid the chaos? "No!" she cried, but her voice faltered, swallowed by the cacophony. The monstrous tree seemed to pulse with rage, shadows swirling faster with each syllable. In a last-ditch effort, Claire tore herself from the spectral grip and fled, the dark laughter resonating behind her, intent on reclaiming what it had lost. But she wasn't out yet. The figure still lurked at the edge of her senses, always watching, always waiting. It promised revelations of the lost if she surrendered. And with each step she took away from that dark space, she could feel the forest shifting, changing her reality. Just when hope flickered in her chest, a sharp pain lanced through her mind. She staggered, clutching her head as visions assaulted her, twisted memories of nights spent around the campfire, laughter with her children dissolving into screams. The ground beneath her trembled, foretelling a deeper darkness brewing. Claire swallowed her fear, ready to confront whatever awaited her. But ahead, in the distance, another figure emerged from the shadows, swathed in darkness, its intentions unclear. "Help them or join them," it rasped, voice like crumbling leaves. Who would she betray? What would she sacrifice? The words hung heavy in the air, their meaning swirling around Claire like the very shadows that surrounded her. The new figure loomed closer, its features obscured by darkness, but she sensed its eyes boring into her with a chilling hunger. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but the haunting cries of her children anchored her in place. "Tell me," she barked, slicing through the tension. "What do you want from me?" The figure paused, tilting its head as if contemplating her desperation. "You choose, dear mother." Its voice was a caress, smooth yet jagged, like glass shards hidden in velvet. They long for salvation from their prison, but they need a vessel willing to take their place. Claire's breath caught in her throat. No, I want to leave them. The thought of abandoning Ben and Lily was a weight too unbearable to lift. The figure stepped forward, flickering in and out of the hazy glow of the clearing. As long as you stand there, they cannot escape. Life demands balance, but the void must be filled. Claire's heart pounded. Time was eroding like the roots of that monstrous tree, and every beat brought with it the knowledge that the figure was right in a sickly twisted sense. The laughter of the shadows grew louder, mocking her desire to fight. No! She shouted, forcing herself to think. She had to rally. What if I can free them without sacrificing myself? There must be another way. In response, the figure seemed to dissolve briefly, only to coalesce again, a fog of movement that suggested its impatience. Hope is a dangerous illusion, Claire. You think love can conquer all? Those tied to the tree are bound by more than mere chains. You will either take their place or watch them drown in despair, forever. Each word struck her like icy rain. Claire staggered back, gripping her temples as visions cascaded through her mind, horrific images of her children melding into the grotesque faces trapped in the tree, their laughter fading into the dreadful chants of the lost souls. She clung to those memories of joy, the warmth of family dinners and bedtime stories, anchoring herself against the rising tide of darkness. Mommy! Help! Ben's voice pierced through the chaos like a beacon, desperate and filled with urgency. With every fiber of her being, Claire focused on her children's faces, fragile and innocent. I will not give up. She cried, balling her fists. There's got to be another way. Then show me, the figure prompted, a glint of surprise in its voice. It stepped even closer, and the ground trembled beneath them, a warning of the forces at play. Claire sensed the shadows closing in, hungry for her surrender, weaving around her ankles. She felt their cold touch, the promise of ease if she allowed them in. But as she gazed at that looming figure, a flicker of something ignited in her. If the darkness wanted her to despair, perhaps hope could be the bridge. What if I unite their pain with mine? She murmured, fretting over her own sanity as she dared to consider it aloud. What if I absorb their torment just long enough for them to be freed? Such sacrifice, the figure hissed, amusement lacing its tone. Radical and yet pure. But will you endure that agony? I'd endure anything to save them. Claire declared, her voice resolute. For the first time, the shadows hesitated, their advance pausing. With a spark of fierce determination, she screamed into the void. Ben! Lily! Hold on! I'm coming! As the shadows surged forward, wrapping tighter around Claire, she felt the immense weight of her choice. Would her pain end their suffering? Or would she become yet another face among the damned? The earth shivered, swirling together the light and dark, and the haunted laughter grew deafening. But in that moment, a new power began to weave between them, a scary, intoxicating force. Prove it, the figure challenged, its voice a rustling whisper, like dead leaves clinging to their branches. And with that, Claire's heart thundered, the shadows urging her on. Would the darkness ultimately consume her? Or could she tear a seam in that dark fabric and pull her children to safety? As the world blotted out around her, she realized she had ignited forces she never understood. But a flicker of doubt danced in her mind, a warning echoing through the chaos. What if the price was higher than her soul? What awaited her on the other side? The answer lay just out of reach, waiting to unfold. The shadows wrapped around Claire like a suffocating shroud, their cold caresses sending icy shivers down her spine. She could feel them probing deeper, looking for weaknesses, seeking the surrender she vehemently resisted. The figure before her was a living nightmare, but it was what it promised that struck terror into her heart. It could take her children, pull them from the dark, but at what cost? Prove it, it had said, an almost playful lilt in its voice that harbored wicked intent. Claire clenched her fists. The shadows throbbed with anticipation, as if waiting for the right moment to strike, to engulf her, body and soul. Around her, the clearing grew dimmer, shadows thickening, writhing like hungry serpents. Claire's breaths came faster, panic gripping her throat. No! She couldn't let them win. Not now. Not when she was so close. I will absorb their pain, she whispered, half to herself, half to the void. In that moment, she envisioned the ties binding her children to the grotesque tree. Their torment was a part of her, tangled in the fibers of her heart. Let me feel it, she demanded, defiance burning in her chest. The air thickened with tension, a stillness that felt almost otherworldly. Very well, the figure hissed, leaning closer. In the dreamlike haze of that moment, Claire felt it an icy jolt that tore through her like lightning. It wasn't just pain, it was an entire symphony of suffering, fragrant and pungent. Her children's cries mingled with the echoes of the lost, a cacophony that clawed at her sanity. With each surge of agony, she steadied herself. She would not break. She would hold on tightly to them, her heart a shield. As the pain swelled within her, Claire focused her thoughts, reaching outward, desperately trying to connect with the very essence of Ben and Lily. Mom! Where are you? Ben's tear-stained voice shattered the gloom, a distant echo bouncing against the dark walls of the forest. Claire felt her heart lurch in response, every instinct urging her to answer, to reach him. I'm here. She screamed, her voice swallowed by the merciless wind. But the shadows twisted, feeding on her fear, forcing her to relive their anguish. With each gulp of sorrow, visions flashed before her eyes, her children, smiles frozen in horror, trapped in a prison of despair. It was a sight unending, one that fueled her determination, igniting an ember of defiance deep within her. Focus. She urged herself. You have to break this cycle. The figure moved closer, shadows swirling violently around Claire, seeking to pull her into the abyss. You cannot shield them forever, it crooned, its voice croaky and laced with dark humor. You feel their pain, but do you understand it? Their laughter pierced through her resolve like ice picks, taunting and relentless. But amid that mockery, Claire felt a creeping sensation form within the depths of the shadows. A flicker of warmth, small but undeniable, a connection formed by love. If she could channel that essence, perhaps she could sever those chains binding her children to the tree. Taking a deep breath, Claire focused on that flicker, expanding it within the cage of torment threatening to consume her. Your pain won't hold me down. She shouted. Together, we rise. The figure recoiled, smoke swirling violently as her words echoed through the darkness like a bell tolling. The pressure around her began to crack. Shadows buckled, writhing as if in disarray. She pressed deeper, reaching out, searching for Ben. His spirit was entwined with the tree, but Claire wouldn't let go. She was their anchor. In one desperate moment, Claire screamed out, Ben. Lily. Come to me. Light flared, a beacon against the consuming blackness. As the shadows shrieked, disoriented, she felt the surge of their weightlessness. Then, just as suddenly, silence enveloped her. The world seemed to hold its breath before laughter erupted, a sound too familiar mixed with something distorted, horrifyingly wrong. What had she unleashed? The air trembled as if a storm was brewing. Would the cost of salvation be her very soul? The silence stretched tight, the figure looming nearer, its dark amusement palpable. Would it allow her to reclaim her children, or had she opened a door best left closed? As the figure lurked before her, Claire realized the battle was far from over. Something stirred in the dark, something ancient and malicious. What awaited them in the depths of that monstrous tree? The answer awaited in the suffocating silence. Claire's heart raced as she stood at the precipice of unknown horrors. The laughter reverberated in her ears, clawing at the thin membrane of her sanity. She could feel the shadows lengthening, hungry for her despair, coiling tightly around her limbs like chains. Each pulse of darkness threatened to drag her under. "What do you want?" she gasped, her voice trembling. The figure remained silent, its form shifting, twisting into grotesque shapes that mockingly mirrored her fear. "You must pay the price," it finally purred, a cruel satisfaction dripping from its words. "You seek to save them, but at what cost? You can't escape their fates. You will suffer or you will lose them forever." Those words struck Claire with a visceral force, yet beneath the waves of dread, she felt determination surge. She wasn't about to be another victim of this woodland malevolence. "I will not give in to you," she shot back, her fervor solidifying. "I love them too much to let you win." The laughter distorted, stretching into an otherworldly wail that sent shivers racing down her spine. The shadows surrounding her surged forward, and raw panic set in. Faces began to appear within the darkness, familiar faces, distorted and crying out in agony. Friends she had lost, neighbors who had disappeared. "No! Get away!" Claire shouted, stepping backward, hands raised to shield herself from the horror creeping closer. Yet every move only invited more shadowy figures to claw at her consciousness, pulling memories of tragedy from the depths of her mind. The figure took on new clarity, becoming a collage of the lost. "Your memories betray you," it hissed, retreating only slightly, its presence still looming. It was feeding on her terror, growing stronger. In that moment of absolute dread, Claire felt a flicker of warmth clawing back into her chest. It was that precious bond with Ben and Lily, strong and unwavering. If she focused on them, she could reclaim her power. "I'll absorb this pain and turn it into strength." The shadows writhed, their malevolence laced with unease at her fierce resolve. She dug deeper, reviving the warmth in her heart, gathering memories of laughter, hugs, and endless summer days spent by the creek. The silent shrieks echoed louder now. The shadows were restless, agitated. "You think their love can protect you?" the figure sneered. "It only makes you more vulnerable." Her breath came ragged, yet she pushed on. "No. Their love is the weapon against you." With that proclamation, Claire closed her eyes, envisioning Ben and Lily, their bright faces shining through the dark storm swirling around her. The flicker inside ignited into a blaze, illuminating her surroundings, fracturing the shadows like glass. She surged forward, breaking the prison of fear that had momentarily held her captive. Suddenly, the world snapped back, colors bursting through the void. For a fleeting second, Claire thought she might have escaped. But that radiant light soon dimmed as the shadows retaliated, swirling and contracting around her. She stumbled, feeling the sharp pull of despair claw at her heels. "Enough!" the figure bellowed, rage seeping into its voice, warping the twisted joy it had held. "You cannot challenge what was born of darkness." "No!" Claire screamed, her pulse pounding. "You can't take them from me. Not again." In that instant, the reality around her shifted. The monstrous tree loomed more vividly than ever, the roots extending like gnarled fingers, beckoning her to join the damned souls tangled within its grasp. She made one final plea, voice hoarse yet resolute, "Ben. Lily. I'm coming." But as Claire lunged toward the tree, shadows lunged with her, ready to ensnare her once again. The air crackled with an unknown energy, and then there was a scream that echoed across the clearing, chilling her to the bone. What waited for her at the roots? Was it salvation or something far worse? Only the dark would tell. Claire's body met the earth with a jolt, limbs entangled in the cold, damp roots of the tree. Pain shot through her like lightning, but it was nothing compared to the suffocating grip of darkness tightening around her chest. As she gasped for breath, the laughter morphed into a low, throaty growl that vibrated through her bones. "Pity," the figure drawled, its voice smooth like silk, "that you think you can change fate." The shadows writhed with anticipation as if they were players in a horrifying dance. Claire blinked furiously, trying to clear the fog of fear that cloaked her vision. She fought against the roots, clawing at the earth, but the more she struggled, the tighter the grip became. The tree was alive, and it was hungry. No! She screamed, a primal terror erupting from deep within. Let me go. With each plea, the shadows flickered, becoming more chaotic. From the darkness, she heard fragmented whispers swirling around her like a swarm of angry bees. Each voice was familiar, echoing the anguish of her past. Help us, Claire, they begged, you can save us if you stop. Claire shouted, clenching her fists. I won't let you take them from me again. The shadows recoiled as if stung, their rhythm interrupted by her furious defiance. The figure loomed closer, now a grotesque form etched against the withered bark of the tree. Foolish girl, do you truly believe you can resist? We are bound together, you and I. Their fate is sealed with your sacrifice. Claire's heart hammered against her ribs. She knew she was on the knife's edge. The images of Ben and Lily, bright and vibrant, flashed through her mind. She focused on those moments, their laughter, their smiles, the little things that made life bearable. She reached for that warmth again, even as the darkness threatened to consume it. I won't give you what you want. Claire shouted, her resolve sparking against the cold dread. She felt strength rising in her chest, pushing back against the encroaching shadows. The figure's expression became a grotesque mask of rage. Then you will pay dearly, and they will suffer for your stubbornness. Suddenly, the whispers morphed into shrieks. The ground beneath her throbbed, and the roots tightened their grip, dragging her deeper into the earth. Panic bubbled within her throat. She remembered the stories, the lost souls, the vanished people. They were all signs of a darker truth residing within these woods, feeding off despair. Claire! Help us! No! Claire screamed, rage mingling with desperation. I refuse to lose them. With one final effort, she twisted her body, breaking free just enough to sit upright. The shadows hesitated, as if they sensed a shift. In a moment of bleak clarity, Claire recalled the old man she met in town, the warnings he had spoken. He had mentioned angered spirits, relentless sorrow, and the price of hope. Stop! She yelled into the swirling madness, I won't let fear control me. Her voice possessed a weight, resonating against the walls of torment. A momentary ripple shook the shadows as their form flickered, uncertainty creeping into the heart of the darkness, but then, with a thunderous roar, the shadows surged forward, lashing out at her with renewed fury. Claire braced herself, heart pounding, ready to plunge into the onslaught, and in that moment, a desperate idea sparked in her mind. What if she flipped the narrative? What if she turned their darkness against them? She gritted her teeth, resolve hardening. Perhaps that was her way out, but before she could act, a resounding crack echoed through the clearing. The tree shuddered, the earth trembled. Something was awakening from its depths. Was it the spirits of the lost? Or something much worse? Claire felt a cold sweat trickling down her back. The shadows weren't the only things stirred by her defiance. She could sense that she was on the brink of uncovering something far more sinister. What would emerge from the roots of that horrid tree? Would it help her or finish what had already begun? The ground trembled beneath Claire, the echoes of that crack still reverberating in her ears. Fear clawed at her throat as she squinted into the thickening dark. Shadows writhed around her, not just hungry for her spirit but fearful of whatever was rising. The air grew thick, heavy with an age-old scent of decay and soil that made her gag. Something's coming, she whispered to herself, the words barely escaping her lips. She had to move. The roots were relentless, binding her like a cruel shackle. With a fierce grunt, Claire summoned all her strength and kicked hard against the earth, feeling the rattling heartbeat of the ground matching her own. The figure smiled, razor-sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. You can't fight the inevitable, Claire. You can't escape what has already been written. The shadows twisted, grasping at her, pulling her back toward the tree, toward the embrace of despair. Not today. The words spilled from her, raw and fierce. She focused on Ben and Lily, the joy in their faces, cleaving that warmth from her memories like a lifeboat in a stormy sea. She couldn't let their laughter fade into nothingness. Not again. Suddenly, the tree shook violently. A thick branch broke free and crashed to the ground nearby, sending splinters flying. Claire blinked, blinking away the haze of growing dread. The shadows around her seemed a bit less confident, flickering uncertainly at the chaotic scene. Then she saw it, a shape forming at the base of the tree, emerging from the roots like a ghost breaking free from its chains. It was cloaked in shadows, but as it rose, pieces of it glimmered, glistening eyes reflecting her frantic movements, limbs like wispy tendrils coiling out into the darkness. "Who dares disturb my rest?" The voice rumbled like thunder, shaking the leaves. Claire's heart plummeted. It was no spirit of the lost, it was something far older, possibly even more malignant. The tree had fed on countless souls, and now they were manifesting in this abomination. "Claire!" The familiar voice called her name, startling her from the trance of terror. She turned to see images, flickering figures rising through the chaos of shadows. Ben and Lily, or at least remnants of them, frail and flickering like dying candles. "Help us!" they cried, their faces twisted with both love and sorrow. "You have to save us." "No!" Claire shouted, rising to her feet as roots thrashed against her legs, a last desperate attempt by the ancient tree. "I want to choose again. I refuse to sacrifice." The monstrous figure towered over her, casting a long shadow that swallowed the light. Its many eyes bore into her, unblinking, full of ancient hunger. "Foolish child, your defiance only strengthens my hold. Those lost souls cling to you, but they will suffer for your choice." Claire felt the terror boiling in her gut. She had to act, had to seize this moment. With every ounce of will, she reached deep into her heart, ready to confront the shadows that had haunted her for so long. "Listen!" she screamed into the darkness. "If you're as strong as you claim, then face what you fear. I am not afraid of you." The figure hesitated, its multiple forms twisting, feigning confidence as the shadows pulsed around it. For one fleeting instant, hope flickered, raising a question that hung heavy in the night. Could fear be turned back like a blade? And as Clara felt a surge of power, a sudden explosion of brilliance erupted from the tree, fire ripping through the roots, swirling upward like a phoenix, lighting up the darkness that surrounded her. But before she could comprehend this turning of the tide, a scream, no, a wail pierced the air, mingling with the chaos. "What have you unleashed?" it shrieked. There was no going back now. She had stirred something ancient, something unfathomably powerful. Claire stood frozen, heart racing. The shadows were shifting again, a maelstrom of darkness that filled the air with malice. She had opened a door, but what had she let in? As the flames raged higher, illuminating the grotesque figure and the swirling shadows around it, Claire realized. She was at the junction of two terrifying pathways. One led toward salvation, the other into the heart of a nightmare. What price would she pay for the choices that lay ahead? The flames crackled wildly, transforming the darkened clearing into something almost surreal. Shadows danced wildly around her, wailing in fury as the control they held over the forest began to slip. Claire could feel the heat on her skin, the fire pulsing with a life of its own. Was this the force she had unleashed? "What have you done?" the figure bellowed, the voice now an unholy blend of wrath and desperation. Its many eyes flared with an anger born of hunger, as it reached out, clawing through the encroaching light like a trapped beast. "I've set them free!" Claire shouted, her voice vibrant with newfound strength. "I want to let you consume my children or the souls you've taken." The writhing shadows recoiled, flickering uncertainly in the blaze that forged a path of radiant hope. Claire carefully took a step forward, emboldened by the sight of her children's images flickering through the chaos, fragile as glass yet bright like stars. "Mommy!" Ben and Lily's ethereal voices soared over the storm, threaded with fear yet mingled with love, a melody of desperation that reached for her heart. "Help us! We're right here. Their fears are your fears, wrap them in light. The figure snarled, a desperate attempt to drive the truth away. But the shadows writhed under the ferocity of the flames, twisting into shapes that resembled terror itself. Ignoring the figure's attempt to dissuade her, Claire clung fiercely to her children's images, filling every inch of her being with memories of happiness, of laughter, shared stories, and warm embraces that had once made her world whole. I'm coming, she cried, her hands lifting towards them, shadows drawing back beneath the ferocity of her resolve. In that moment, the fire surged, illuminating the clearing even brighter. With every heartbeat, Claire could feel the links binding her and her children growing taut. You can break free, she urged, her voice a counterpoint to the voices of despair swirling about her. Fight. Remember the joy that exists. Focus on love. Fight for each other. A tremor rippled through the shadows as if they were reeling from her words, and Claire seized her opportunity. With a wild hope shooting through her, she concentrated on that flicker of connection. I'm here, you're not alone. You have each other, we have each other. The shadows quivered, flickering perilously, and Claire felt warmth radiating from the flames now swirling in a whirlwind around her. She could see the terror on the faces of the shadows already, their once grim facade beginning to crack beneath the intensity of her love. On the periphery, the figure roared in fury, lunging towards her, its clawed hands ready to snatch her back into despair, but she wouldn't let it. Join me. Join us. Claire shouted, the urgency palpable in her lips. In response, the laughter of the children joined her voice, harmonizing with layers of light that began to peel away the darkness. Each pulse resonated. Each callback was an echo reverberating through the very forest, mingling with the cries of the lost souls who had suffered under the weight of despair. Claire came a gentle voice, whispers of her children twinkling through the blaze. We're ready, we're here. The shadows crumpled under the weight of Claire's love, tears streaming like invisible rivers as they started to recede. The figure writhed, its form flickering as if caught in a storm. You will pay for this. But they won. Claire shouted back, her defiance aflame, unyielding both shield and sword. Your darkness holds no power over me or my family. With a forceful thrust, the flames erupted higher, flames that sparkled like diamonds, pulling the children's essence from the grasp of shadows that had ensnared them. For a moment, Claire felt weightless, suspended between worlds as her heart beat in cadence with the striking reality around her. Hold on. With a final surge, Claire reached deeper. Grabbing onto their hands as the light engulfed them, she pulled them close, enveloping the warmth of family that had never faded. We are together. Always. The shadows screamed in frenzied horror as they broke apart, unraveling under the suffocating glow of love. Claire held onto her children tightly, their figures merging with the light until they were free, the roots around them disintegrating like ashes into the wind. In that final explosive moment, darkness vanished like mist in the sun, and Claire felt weight lift from her spirit as the malevolent voice cried out one last time, fading into nothingness. The fire swirled around them, and before Claire knew it, they were standing in the clearing, bathed in the golden light of day, the horrors of the night escaping into the shadows. The ancient tree crumbled behind them, its roots no longer gripping. Mommy! Ben exclaimed, the warmth of each other filling the hollow spaces left by fear. You saved us. Holding her children fiercely, Claire felt tears brim in her eyes. We've overcome darkness together. We will always find a way. And as they turned to walk back down the path through the forest, the air felt fresh, lightened from those haunted roots. The stories whispered by the trees would fade into echoes. This was a new beginning, the rebirth of hope. This was the moment. Claire smiled, resolve solid as the earth beneath her feet. They were freed. Don't you dare leave without showing your love. You need to subscribe now to catch our next gripping tales. You must smash that like button now to fuel our journey through the wild stories ahead. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who have to experience this incredible conclusion. This is your moment to be part of something bigger.